Welcome to Nebraska Farmcast, a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I'm Ryan Evans. Following a Trump administration-era trade deal signed a few years ago, the total quantity and value of U.S. beef being exported to China have both risen significantly. This remained true even through the COVID-19 pandemic. However, recent heightened tensions between the two countries over the situation in Taiwan has left some U.S. producers concerned about the sensitivity of the U.S. beef industry to Chinese purchases. That's according to Assistant Professor and Livestock Economist with our Center for Ag Profitability, Dr. Elliott Dennis, and he joins me now for more. Thanks for being here again, Elliott.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan.
So can you first explain more about this trade agreement I mentioned between the U.S. and China?
Yeah, so it really went into effect in the beginning of 2020. And really it did 5 primary things for the U.S. beef industry, but most noticeably it did value the traceability program that we had set residual limits on hormones that we were using. And it basically said that if there was a future outbreak within the U.S. for a bovine disease, that they would follow the OIE Animal Health Standard Protocol, which was really important because it made the objective kind of stopping of trade really go through a third party rather than being really subjective. And so those were 3 major things, and in agreement with that, they decided to up their purchases of beef, and we really went from really not trading any with mainland China to really becoming our 3rd largest meat exporter or location for meat exports for U.S. beef.
And how are there other ways in which the U.S. beef exports to China have changed since the signing of this trade deal, like compared to before it was signed? Yeah,
so I mean, U.S. beef was getting into China, it just wasn't going directly to mainland China. So it would go to Vietnam or it'd go to Hong Kong, and then it would be trucked in to mainland China. So this is really the importance of this, was that we were able to actually load out on, a California port and dock in a mainland China port and to export that beef.
What kind of numbers are we talking? Do you know what the export numbers have been like?
Yeah, so really starting in January of 2020, we started taking off. We finished the year in December about 20 million pounds per month. And now in this year, we're probably around 40 to 45 million pounds of beef that we're shipping on a monthly basis. And really we see that really kind of peak in August, September, and then we see exports gradually come down. But granted, we really only had one representative year, 2021, so whether that seasonal pattern of exports continues, I think, is really unknown at this point.
Great point. And given the recent tensions over the situation in Taiwan, what are U.S. producers concerned about right now?
Yeah, so we're building out the Chinese market. I think there's been some concerns about whether there will be a subjective policy come out banning exports. That's one concern. One of is, since they've become such a large location for U.S. beef, as I mentioned, the 3rd largest location for beef, that maybe we're relying too much on the Chinese market and exposing ourselves too much, though I think that's a valid concern. So those are the primary motivations by, hey, we're building out this market. Is this going to be relevant for us if a policy comes out? So there's some ways that we can go about measuring basically our export dependence, and there's lots of ways that you can do this, but one simple way is just to look at all of the places that we ship, look at the quantity or the value that we ship to that location, and do some calculations to see how much we rely upon a certain countries on average. And so this measure is between 0 and 1. If we're closer to 1, it means we're really reliant upon 1 or 2 countries in particular. The closer we get to 0, it basically means that we're very, very diversified. And so what I did in the paper is that you can actually see what this looks like from a year-to-year basis. And if we compare it back into the late 1980s, we were at a level of about 0.35, 0.4. Then, of course, we started to come down a little bit. Then BSE happened, and then we jumped back up to 0.4, and right now we're about 0.15. Even with China over the last several years, we're still very diversified, and that has a lot to do with the way that the U.S. responded to the BSE incident in December 2020 or 2003.
Yeah, and a reminder to listeners, do check out that article. It's up on our website at cap.unl.edu, and you can see where Elliott has graphed these data points, and you can really see the relationship over time and how what we've been talking about, this relationship with China, is indicative of the bigger picture of U.S. beef exports and their sensitivity in the worldwide market. There's a link for that in the podcast description. And again, you can, of course, find that on cap.unl.edu. And Elliott, what will you be watching then going forward, and what should producers be following?
Yeah, I think I'm really going to be watching for the export market to continue to expand. I think that was the big thing with BSE. We were able to ship more quantities to existing partners, but in fact, we're also able to grow the number of partners that we were trading with. I think as the U.S. beef industry continues to do that, we'll actually be able to be more resilient to maybe these shocks within a particular country. And that overall just helps the U.S. beef industry, because if more product is shipped abroad, we're allowed to grow more our production, and ultimately the price can come up for producers. So that's what I'm looking for. This is a long-term, strategy. Nebraska as a state has really led this effort because we've done a lot of trade, meetings. We've also gone over and does kind of trade delegation. So I think that's what I'm looking for. Long-term and the short-term, I'm going to be looking if the Chinese follow a similar seasonal pattern, that we can hopefully have some predictability in the future years.
All right, great. Well, Elliott, thank you very much for the information. Again, check out the new article by Dr. Elliott Dennis up on our website at cap.unl.edu, looking at U.S. beef exports to China. And thanks again for your time.
Yep, thanks for having me, Ryan.
Nebraska Farmcast is a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. For the latest research-based information and education resources to manage your farm or ranch operation, visit our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu.